Happy beautiful day. It's Pete Cohen. It's episode 2 of the 4 episodes of you going into the movie business. That's right. You are in the movie business. Really? Am I? Yes, you are in the movie business. This is your life right now. You're acting it out. But it's time for you to create a movie that you actually really want to be in, and you're excited about who you are and where your life is going. Get ready for another game-changing podcast. I'll see you after the theme tune. The big question is, how are some people in the world today creating the results they want with their health, wealth, and happiness? What exactly are these people doing? This podcast will give you the answers and inspire you to live the life that you want today. This is a story, an epic adventure. Happy beautiful day, it's Pete Cohen here. The Pete Cohen podcast, brought to you by Pete Cohen Coaching. I have been coaching people for a very long time, and I love to coach people and love to help people create the life that they want. Why am I talking like this? Well, this is a story of a person who looks a lot like you. I don't know about you, but I love movies. I love stories. We all do. That's something we've all got in common. This is the Pete Cohen podcast, The Inspiration Revolution. And this is a series of 4 podcasts. This is the second one in how to create the movie of your life. This episode is brought to you by Pete Cohen Coaching. If you want to see what coaching can do for you, head over to petecohen.com/coaching. Thank you so much. We've started now fantastically, started to receive some emails from people because this is one of the things we're inviting people to do all over the world, to tell us what is it that they're working on in their life. What is the movie that they are creating? My goal in these podcasts is obviously to inspire you. To be inspired quite simply means that you are breathing life into who you are and where you're going. And very few people do that. I haven't figured out exactly why that is. I reckon, as I've mentioned before in previous podcasts, that perhaps 2% of people around the world are very inspired about where they're going. There's something in their future that they're going after. I'm a part of a couple of amazing projects, and there's one of them called Everyday Spartans, and that's just why I came back from Japan. Never been to Japan before. I was over there and a part of this project sponsored by a company called Rakuten, and this is for Spartan races. They're obstacle races. Unbelievable. The guy who owns that company, a guy called Mr. Joe DeSana, a close personal friend of mine, and his goal, his dream, is to get 100 million people off their couches. And I wonder what difference that would make to the world if people just didn't sit on a couch and they got up and they moved more in their life and they went outside and moved more and got more active, got more fit. That's a big dream that someone has. That's the movie that he is trying to create. And I asked him, how can I help you with that? We met at a convention. We were both speaking. And after the convention, we sat down. There's a group of us. We had dinner and we started telling stories. Now, his stories just got everyone's attention because they were really quite crazy. And when I told him part of my story of what I had been through with my wife, and my wife having been given not very long to live and looking outside of the box for a solution, he really identified with that story. He could see that I was the sort of person that he wanted to surround himself with, because he worked out that you're only as good as the people who are around you, who support you and care for you. And why am I telling you this? Well, me asking him, how can I help you, has resulted in me going to Japan and being a part of an initiative called Everyday Spartans. And we climbed up Mount Fuji. And I must admit, it was a lot harder than I thought it was actually going to be. And thankfully, I bought a stick that I really needed all the way up. It took about 8 hours to get up. It took about 4.5 hours to get down. And it was incredible. There were so many people that were doing this. So many, especially obviously Japanese people. Japan is known as the land of the rising sun. If you look at their flag, there's a sun. Watching the sun come up to them is very, very, very important. And if you ever get a chance to go to the top of Mount Fuji, in fact, if you follow me on Instagram, you can actually see I recorded on time lapse the sun coming up because we made it up there in time. Why am I telling you this? Well, when I'm telling you this, chances are you're starting to see some of what I'm talking about, because we all have this ability to see. We all have this opportunity to come up with ideas and bring those ideas to life. And I think that part of the reason very few of us come up with ideas and follow through is because we're frightened. We're frightened of failing. We're frightened of what other people will think. We think it's going to be hard work. We don't think that we're good enough to get what we want. And my goal with these 4 podcasts is most definitely to give you a frame of reference, to give you a framework. I think we all need a framework in order for us to live a happy life. And I unfortunately, as I mentioned in the last podcast, when I grew up, the films I loved the most was zombie films. And I didn't really understand at the time, but I think looking back, it was probably part of the story that I'm in now, is that the realization of how so many of us are like zombies. That if you don't understand the zombie films, the whole idea is when there's no room left on heaven or earth, the dead will walk the earth. And that's how I now see how lots of people are just going through life. They're just trying to get by. And I understand that it's difficult for people. But how do we deal with those difficulties? Well, for so many people, they start looking at other people's stories. You know, what's your favorite film? For most people, it's a story where someone has overcome some form of adversity, something difficult, something happened in that person's life. They were called to an adventure, and I'm calling you to an adventure. I'm saying, hey, look, why don't you look at your life as a movie? And part of what I wanted to explain to you today is to give you an awareness, because we know that people don't change when we tell them what to do. We know that people are much more likely to change when their perspective changes. So just take a moment to think about how much time in your life have you spent listening, reading, watching films where you have identified with the character, and after having watched it, you have felt fired up, you have felt motivated, maybe even felt inspired for a short period of time. I share the story of going to see Rocky 3, which was very similar to Rocky 2, which was similar to Rocky 1, which was similar to Rocky 4, Rocky 5, Rocky Balboa, Creed 1, Creed 2. It was the same thing, just a fairly different script. It's captured your imagination because all films follow a very similar journey, the hero's journey. And I'm asking you, I'm calling you out and saying, hey, come on, life is a journey. Life is a story. Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm calling you. I'm calling you up. I'm asking you to take the call. Can you take the call? You know, it's like Superman. The call, he's taking on the call. Are you ready to take the call? What happens to us is we go and watch a film, and then we feel good for a while. I did after Rocky 3. I came out, I ran, and then it didn't take very long for me to go back to what is familiar to me. And what is familiar to us is what we think we are, what we think we do, what we think our life is all about, and we keep manifesting that. Have you not ever stopped to realize just how wonderful life is, but also understand why we are the way that we are? And most of us just go round in circles. Most of us go round in circles because our brains are wired up in such a way to favor what we already know. And when you look at any hero in all of the films, or most of the films you've ever seen, they are called to an adventure they don't want to go. If you think about that, think of all the films you've ever seen. I mean, just before I came on and started recording this, I started thinking about some of the different films that I've watched in my life. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, it's the same. It's always the same. Do you remember this? Yes, that's E.T. I don't know whether you've seen that or whether you've seen That's Indiana Jones. All the films are the same. How about this one? That's Harry Potter. You know, he's called to an adventure. He doesn't want to go. Even though his life isn't very good where he is, living under the stairs, he's still scared. And most of us live in fear that we're not good enough. But what I'm asking you to do is to stop, just step back for a minute. Use the most powerful tool known in the whole personal development field. The tool that I encourage all of the people that I work with is to become more aware. Just as an aside here, if you look on Instagram and if you look on Facebook, there is this massive movement around looking at other people's stories and then starting to follow someone else's story. And when we look at people who have really significantly changed their life, they are inspired by others, but they decide to walk their own path. They don't decide to follow exactly what someone else has done. And for so many people, that leads to misery. How many people in the world today do you think there are out there right now who are struggling, either saying, I don't feel like it, or they're looking at someone else's life and feeling like, oh, I'm just not as good as you. I don't have what you have. And this is the dumbing down that exists around the world. And it's time for us to rise up and say, you know what? I am ready. I am ready to take on the movie of my life. So let's do something about this. Are you ready? Are you ready to see your life as one big epic adventure where you are the hero? And what we're going to look at today is the actor that you are. Now, let me be the director. My goal over time is to help you become the director in your own life. But if you could just let me take on that role. Now, the word director, this is something that I Googled recently. It means a straight line. It's to give a particular direction. So let me be that director and say, hey, look, I'd love you to play this part. I'm looking for an actor. And this is but I'd love you to really be involved in this. So I want to ask you as the actor, what type of film do you want to be in? I want to cast you in this film. What films have you been in the past? Let's not look at this as right or wrong or good or bad. It just is what it is. So in the past, what sort of films have you been in? Well, for most of us, we've been in love stories, we've been in horror films, we've been in serious quests. Most of us have been in dramas. I think that's how most of us are living our life. We're in drama, we're in a soap opera. Look at these popular programs all around the world. Some of them have been going for years and years and years and years, and nothing ever really happens, just enough to keep you watching. And by the way, we all love a story. We all want to know what happens at the end. And these programmers are very, very, very clever that they've plugged something into you that you keep coming back. Join us after the break for those all important lie detector results. Join us after the break to see who goes through and who gets voted out, that it keeps you engaged enough. And I'm not saying we should stop watching those programs, but I really encourage us to step back and think, what type of movie do I want to create? What is the legacy of my life? What is the actor that you're playing? And this is what I want you to think about. What is the role that your actor is playing right now? And this is a big, big, big message. For most of us, the role that we're playing, we're in a soap opera, we're going round in circles. We don't have the life that we want. We have an okay life. We're not where we want to be. Me personally, I'm never where I want to be. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy where I am, but there's always somewhere that I'm going. There's always something that I am inspired to do. And I haven't always been like that. For most of my life, maybe like you, I have been driven to move away from my past. I didn't like who I was, and I wanted to prove to the world that I was somebody. And that allowed me to do a lot of things, from writing 19 books to being on television to just having loads of accolades and fantastic, rah, 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 rah. But I wasn't particularly happy because I was being driven away and nothing was good enough. And it was only through unforeseen circumstances that I now look to the future and excited about the future. In fact, the word hope really means that you know your future is better than where you are. And some people say, well, This is what Joe DeSana said to me, that, death is the ultimate price that you pay for life. So let's make it worth it. That's where we're all going. And I think if we think about what is it that we all want, you'd probably find that most of us want to leave a mark on this earth. Most of us would like to be remembered. Most of us would like to have left an imprint on this life. And if we don't wake up to the fact that we have that opportunity, most of us are just going to go round and round and round in circles. And if this isn't for you, I totally understand. But maybe for some of you, maybe for one of you that's listening to this, this is resonating with you. If it is, well, let us know. Email us. Tell us. Email info@my365.me, info@my365.me, and say, this is me. This is the film I'm creating. This is what I'm after. What do you reckon? Should we pause just for a moment? See, as the actor that you're playing, most of us are playing the victim role, and we keep playing that role. The victim role inside us, where we victimize ourselves. Again, it's a conversation that we don't always have. How are you? As your director, I'm asking, how are you? How are you with yourself? The origins of how are you actually are quite biblical. How are you with God? Now, I don't want to talk about God. I want to talk about how are you with yourself. And if you're being brutally honest, and this is where I encourage you just to be aware, you realize I am victimizing myself. Do you want to go from being a victim to a creator? That is the main point I want to share with you today on this podcast. To go from the victim to the creator. It doesn't mean you'll stop being a victim all of a sudden, because for most of us, there's no smoke without fire. With this wonderful thing called fire, there is smoke. And if you decide to create this wonderful fire, something that is burning inside you that you have to do in your life, it's probably still going to be challenging. If it wasn't, you wouldn't watch that film that didn't have that challenge in it. So I'm asking you to identify with the character that you are going to be playing. This is where you start to be creative. Who is the person that you are wanting to become? So it's almost like, as Stephen Covey wrote about in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, 7 habits of not just people, highly effective people. Who is the person that you are becoming? To identify with that character. Isn't that one of the greatest things? So this is the person I'm becoming. These are the areas in my life I want to create a movie in. So when we look at the areas of life that you might be interested in, are you where you want to be with your energy and health? Is it exactly where you want it to be? Probably not. That's why when I finish recording this podcast, I'm going to get on my bike, which is just my right next to me here, my exercise bike, and I'm going to work out, because I'm not going to get fitter by doing nothing. There is a price to pay, but because I can identify with the person I am becoming, and I see that person as someone who is fit and stronger than I am right now, it makes it a lot easier to do it. I still have that niggling voice in my head that says, I don't feel like it. But it's much easier where you identify with the movie that you are creating to do it. So are you where you want to be with your health? Are you where you want to be with your relationships? Your intimate relationships, the people that you work with? Would you like to make better relationships? Probably. And what about your work and your service or your wealth? Are you where you want to be? If you're like most people who are just waiting for your numbers to come in, you're waiting for something to happen outside of yourself, you're in hiding to nothing. That's why very few people win the lottery. And that's why it is a lottery. If you want to put the odds back in your favor, today is the day. Write the date down. For me, today, it's the 30th of July 2019, and the story continues. And this isn't just a one-off story. This is an ongoing thing. This is your life. And I ask you to think about who is the character that you want to be, and identify with the person that you're becoming, even to write it down and draw it, or whatever it is for you, just to get creative. Because even though you have there's no smoke without fire. You also have that part of you, this burning desire to do more, to create more and be more. And that is the biggest fight that most of us ever face in our life. And when you look at all of the movies, go and watch a movie, go and watch your favorite movie again and look at the character and ask yourself, why do you identify with this character? Because you see that person overcoming adversity. And often the biggest adversity that they have overcome is the adversity in themselves. Now you can tell by my enthusiasm how important this is to me, because my dream, my mission, my legacy is to inspire millions of people all over the world to see their life as their movie. Now, when I was in Tokyo, there was 8 of us there. There was me from the UK, there was someone from Sophia from Germany, there was Frank from Spain, there was Chrissy from America, there was Jin from Japan, there's Jess from Taiwan, 8 of us, unbelievable group of people, and we bonded straight away because I think we realized this is an epic adventure. But Jess, who's a serious athlete, was limping the whole way, and she had competed in 2 adventure races when she was severely injured, and there was obviously something seriously wrong. And now today she's going to be having surgery. She's got a fracture in her hip, in her leg bone, her femur, right at the top, the neck of the bone. And I really admire her. And I just sent her a message before I actually recorded this podcast to say, look, it's imperative that you give yourself a reference point. You give yourself a frame around an understanding of this is happening for a reason. There's a bigger picture around what's going on. The fact that you will recover, the fact that you will train, the fact that you will inspire, the fact that when you do go out and compete again in the future, you'll feel so much better because of what you went through. Also, I met a former UFC fighter when I was out there as well, a guy called Keith Jardine. And he's an actor, and he was telling me that every single day he has to, he said a few years ago he had to book in a session with himself. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating. I said, why did you have to do that? He goes, I had to wake up to what I was doing, what I was thinking, how I was living my life, because it really wasn't in keeping with what I wanted to have happen in my life. So I'm asking you to book in a session with yourself. And trying to do all of this on your own, it is possible. Of course it's possible. But no man is an island, and everyone needs help. And that's my mission, to put this information out there to you that maybe you say, yeah, that's right. You know, I do want more. And what do I need? Let me ask you that question. What do you need in order to feel inspired to, when this podcast finishes, that you go and do something? You immediately write down, who is it I want to become? Who is the person I want to be? What is the character? And by the way, the word character, which comes from the Greek word to chisel, that you're going to have to chisel away at parts of you that you want to get rid of and bring forward, bring out qualities that maybe you aren't even aware of that you have inside you. And when we look at the movie that most of us do want to create, it is about something inspirational, about making a difference to other people's lives by making a difference to ours. So take some time out. Most people will need some additional support. And if that is you, then you have the opportunity to get on a call, to speak to me, and let me help you take this to another level. Like I say, you could do this on your own, but our strategy calls are free. Just go to petecohen.com/coaching. There's a 30-minute video there that explains in more detail how coaching could help you and support you. The role of a coach is to take someone from where they are to where they want to be the guide, to be the director. My goal is to inspire you to say, you know what, I want my life to be an epic adventure or a love story or whatever story you want it to be. You can choose this, and this probably won't be the first movie that you produce. You can continue to produce movies, but a movie that doesn't know where it's going, no one's really going to watch that. A movie that doesn't have a character that overcomes adversity, no one's really going to watch that. Let's get excited. Let's be adventurous. Let's make the next blockbuster movie where you are the actor, you are the director, you are the producer, you choose the supporting cast, and let's do this together. So what's your biggest learning from this podcast today? What are you going to do? What's one thing you could do right now? Right now. What do you reckon? I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. We all love stories. Every story has a pretty much a similar theme. In my book, which recently came out, Inspirators, I talk about the leader's journey. The leader's journey has 12 steps, or actually it has 13. For step 1, is your future unwritten? Is it? It is, isn't it? Do you have the power to change? You might not believe it, but I think deep down you know. Could coaching help you, take you from where you are to where you want to be? What would happen if you ignored your power? I think you probably know that if you ignore this message, that's where most of us sit, in misery and frustration and sadness, because we know we're not doing what we're capable of doing. Are you prepared, step 5, to step into the unknown? Surely you know that if you're going to do anything differently, you're going to have to do things differently, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable. And that's where we love our heroes. If they hadn't crossed over that line, they'd just stay where they were, and no one would have watched that. What happens when you get lost along the way? Because you're going to get lost. It's going to be challenging. Let me help you. Why would you want to surround yourself with like-minded people? The darkest hour, you know that there are going to be challenges along the way where the easiest thing to do is to give up. But the biggest challenge is to realize you need the challenge, because where you want to go means you have to go through what's going on right now. Ipsiety, this is where you start to understand your inner self. The more you understand yourself and what makes you tick and who you are and where you're going, the more you'll bring your greatest self to the party. And the other areas that the framework that we use is the plateau. You're going to hit plateaus where you don't feel like you're making any progress. Why you need to flourish, which is understanding what you need to do in order to shine and finding true purpose. All of this revolves around mastery, which is really sticking to something no matter what. That's what the world needs. It needs more and more people just like you who are prepared to listen to this podcast from the beginning to the end and say, I'm ready. I am ready to change my life. I appreciate you. If you've enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share it. Feel free to tell someone what you're doing. You'll find that some people might laugh, but some people might go, wow, I'm fired up. Can I join you on this epic adventure? Thank you so much for watching. What's your biggest learning? What's your biggest takeaway? I really genuinely appreciate you. We know a great life doesn't happen by chance. It happens by design. Stop waiting for it to happen. Design that life, and let's bring that amazing you into this world today. Take care, and we'll see you for episode 3 of these 4 episodes on creating the movie of your life. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you want to find out what life coaching can do for you with me, Pete Cohen, then simply visit petecohen.com/coaching and book a free strategy call, and we can help you find out exactly what it is that you want and help you put a plan in place to create the future that you want today.